A lifeless body lay curled beneath a flickering street lamp in a quiet London alley. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue, and a strange crimson residue stained the corners of his mouth. In one clenched fist, a crushed jam wrapper, soaked and torn. No signs of struggle, no weapon, just silence and that chilling look frozen in his wide, glassy eyes, as if trying to say something before death claimed him. This wasn't suicide. This was deliberate. And somewhere in the shadows, a killer was watching. You're watching Crime Chronicles Confidential, where we uncover the truths behind crimes that governments would rather keep buried. This isn't just a story of murder. It's a web of secrets woven between British intelligence, forensic science, and fractured human ties. Let's go deeper into the shadows where this mystery truly begins. It was a fog-drenched morning in Hampstead Heath, one of London's most peaceful parks, where early risers often came for silence and solitude. But that quiet was shattered when a jogger froze mid-stride, staring at something slumped on a bench. It was a man, mid-30s, well-dressed, but lifeless. His head leaned unnaturally to one side, eyes open, mouth slightly parted, as if caught in a final, unheard scream. His skin had turned an eerie shade of gray-blue, and the fingers of his right hand were tightly curled around something odd. As the authorities arrived and cordoned off the area, detectives noticed that item almost immediately, a small, crumpled jam container, the kind you'd find in a breakfast hamper. It was torn, stained with red sticky residue, and partially flattened as though clenched tightly before death. There was no phone, no wallet, no ID. Just the body, the jam, and the quiet terror etched into his final expression. Detective Inspector Nora Bennett crouched by the bench, examining the scene with clinical precision. There were no signs of physical assault, no blood, no external injuries. The man appeared perfectly intact. But something didn't sit right. His eyes were too wide. His muscles, despite death, looked too tense. And then there was the smell, faint, metallic, unnatural. It clung to the air like a warning. Back at the lab, the initial autopsy revealed no traces of common toxins, no puncture wounds, no overdose indicators. But when the team ran a more advanced analysis on the residue found on his lips and hands, they discovered a complex compound laced within the jam. It wasn't just food, it was a delivery method. Someone had poisoned the man using something so well hidden, so precise, that only a forensic specialist could detect it. This wasn't just murder. It was a message, a silent scream, crafted with purpose. And whoever had done this knew exactly how to kill without leaving a trace. The jam wasn't just a clue. It was the beginning of a puzzle far more intricate than anyone had anticipated. The man's fingerprints came back within hours. His name, Elias Granger. Age, 36. British national. No prior criminal record. No active social media. According to public records, he worked as a logistics coordinator for a mid-sized import-export firm near the docks in East London. A normal man with a normal job, or so it seemed. Detective Bennett paid a visit to the company listed in his file. His manager described Elias as punctual, polite, and reserved. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, never attended office gatherings, and often volunteered for night shifts. His desk was neat, almost obsessively so. But his computer? Completely wiped. Not a single document, email, or browsing history. IT claimed it had been auto-cleared just 2 days before his death. Next stop was his apartment in Hackney. Inside, everything looked in place, except for one thing. His fridge was empty, except for water bottles and a row of identical jam jars. Strawberry, each one sealed, untouched. In his drawer, investigators found a worn notebook filled with strange symbols and coded entries, alongside old clippings of newspaper articles. most of them about unsolved poisonings dating back nearly 2 decades. What kind of logistics coordinator kept a personal file on cold case murders? As the investigation deepened, a clearer picture began to form. Elias wasn't just an office worker. He was researching something. Tracking patterns. Poison cases across Europe, tied together by methods so subtle they'd gone unnoticed by police. And in each of them, odd food items were found near the victim. Jam, honey, chocolate syrup. He hadn't been random. He was part of something. Whether a hunter or a whistleblower, one thing was certain. Elias Granger had secrets. Secrets that someone wanted buried forever. The forensic pathologists at the Metropolitan Police Laboratory were no strangers to poison cases. But what they found inside Elias Granger's bloodstream left even the most experienced toxicologists stunned. Initial scans for known toxins, narcotics, and chemical agents came back clean. It was only after a more exhaustive toxicological panel run through a liquid chromatography mass spectrometry system that they discovered an anomaly, one that didn't match any compound in their global poison database. The substance was synthetic, rare, and chemically engineered with surgical precision. It targeted the nervous system without triggering spasms or convulsions, shutting down vital functions in a slow, silent cascade. It didn't dissolve like cyanide or leave traces like arsenic. Instead, it mimicked a naturally occurring amino acid, masking itself as part of the body's own chemistry until it reached critical mass. The compound had no commercial name, no known use in pharmaceuticals, no trace in medical literature. But its molecular fingerprint, encrypted, deliberate, suggested it had been made by professionals. Not rogue scientists, not underground dealers, but someone with access to high-level research facilities. Detective Bennett sat across from Dr. Rajiv Malhotra, the lead forensic chemist. He leaned back, tapping his pen against the lab report. "This isn't something you buy off the dark web," he said quietly. "It's lab-born, government-grade, designed for deniability." Even more disturbing was how it had been administered. Tests confirmed that the jam found near Elias had been laced with microscopic capsules, gelatin-based, heat-sensitive, and undetectable by sight or smell. Once ingested, they dissolved in minutes. The poison didn't kill instantly. It gave the victim enough time to walk, sit, and even speak, before the body slowly shut down. Whoever crafted this toxin hadn't just wanted Elias dead. They wanted him to suffer in silence. No outcry, no fight, just a soft fall into darkness. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure this death left no trail. But they hadn't counted on one thing. The body was talking, and forensic science was listening. Detectives canvassed the area around Hampstead Heath, collecting hours of CCTV footage from nearby shops, traffic cams, and private residences. Most of it showed nothing unusual: empty streets, early morning mist, and the occasional jogger. But then, from a corner bakery just 2 blocks from where Elias was found, they caught a glimpse of something chilling. At 5:42 a.m., a lone figure appeared on the footage. Tall, slim, hood pulled low, walking with steady purpose. The person approached the bakery's delivery entrance, not the storefront, and paused near a set of crates. In one gloved hand, barely visible under the sleeve, was a familiar object, a small, foil-sealed jam packet, the exact same brand and design found beside Elias's body. The figure didn't enter the shop. Instead, they bent slightly, placed something into one of the outgoing baskets, then disappeared into the alleyway without looking back. Detective Bennett paused the footage and zoomed in on the hand. No fingerprints, but the way the fingers curled around the item suggested confidence. Deliberate action, not panic. The entire maneuver had taken less than 20 seconds. Clean, efficient, practiced. When officers questioned the bakery owner, he confirmed that a batch of pre-packaged breakfast sets had been prepared for delivery that morning, including jam packets. But the delivery boy, who arrived just after 6 a.m., hadn't noticed anything unusual. Later analysis of the delivery crate revealed a subtle tear in the seal of one packet. Inside it, hidden between layers of jam, were microscopic gelatin capsules, identical to those found in Elias's system. The delivery route, as it turned out, included Elias's office building. The crate had been left unattended in the lobby for just under 15 minutes. It was enough. The killer had used the city's own routine, its blind spots, its morning deliveries, as a weapon. One step ahead, invisible, but not invincible, because now the shadow had a time, a location, and a pattern. Detectives located Elias Granger's next of kin, his younger brother, Simon Granger, a 33-year-old IT consultant based in Bristol. He arrived in London 2 days after Elias's death, dressed in a dark suit and heavy silence. During the official interview, Simon appeared composed, too composed. No visible grief, no signs of shock, just short, rehearsed answers. He claimed he and Elias hadn't spoken in over a year due to personal differences. When asked to elaborate, he hesitated, then vaguely mentioned a falling out over their late father's estate. But according to legal records, the will had been settled 3 years earlier without contest. That raised the first red flag. When shown Elias's notebook filled with coded symbols and newspaper clippings about poisonings, Simon went pale. He insisted he had no knowledge of Elias's research, no interest in crime cases, and no idea why his brother would collect such disturbing material. But his phone told a different story. With a warrant, police accessed Simon's call logs and browsing history. Just weeks before Elias's death, Simon had searched for forensic toxin detection, slow-acting poisons, and chemical compounds used in intelligence operations. He had also made several encrypted calls to a number traced to a private lab operating out of Germany, an entity known for its discrete biochemical analysis services. When confronted, Simon deflected. "I was just curious. It's the internet. Everyone searches weird things." But it wasn't just his search history. An old neighbor of Elias came forward, recalling a heated argument between the brothers a few months back. Shouting, accusations. Elias had accused Simon of betrayal, of stealing something, of putting others at risk. Was it about money, inheritance? Or was Elias uncovering something darker, something Simon was involved in? As pressure mounted, Simon's polished exterior began to crack. Detectives now faced a haunting possibility. Elias hadn't just been silenced by a stranger. The killer might have been family. And the motive? Buried beneath years of lies, jealousy, and secrets only blood could betray. The toxicology report had already raised alarms, but when the chemical structure of the poison was cross-referenced with international intelligence databases, a disturbing connection emerged. The compound bore similarities, albeit more advanced, to a formula once used in high-profile political assassinations linked to the Russian KGB, and later, its modern successor, the FSB. The forensic team flagged its resemblance to a nerve agent used in a 2006 London poisoning, one that claimed the life of a former Russian spy. But this new variant was cleaner, faster, and left almost no trace. It had evolved. That's when MI5 stepped in. Agents arrived unannounced at the police precinct, requesting access to all data related to Elias Granger's death. According to internal files, Elias had once been flagged by domestic intelligence. Not as a suspect, but as a civilian informant. Years ago, he'd submitted anonymous tips about suspicious shipments moving through the docks, shipments believed to be linked to Eastern European espionage networks. None of those tips had ever led to arrests. But MI5 hadn't forgotten him. The question now was, had Elias stumbled upon something new, something dangerous enough to make him a target? An MI6 analyst later confirmed that the jam packet capsules resembled a delivery method tested in a covert operation nearly a decade earlier. That method was believed to have been shelved, but clearly someone had perfected it. Whoever killed Elias didn't just want him dead. They wanted his death to send a message to others who might have known too much. And the precision of the execution, lab-made poison, timed delivery, vanishing suspect, suggested involvement at the highest level. Was Elias caught in the middle of an international spy war? Had he gotten too close to a truth that intelligence agencies had buried? And if so, who exactly was pulling the strings? An old enemy from the East, or a double agent working much closer to home? The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a murder. It was a move on a chessboard the public never sees. A silent war fought not with guns, but with poison. While preparing Elias Granger's body for final examination, the medical examiner noticed something previously overlooked, a faint burn mark on the inside of his left forearm. It wasn't fresh. It had healed over time but still left a distinct outline, as if once branded with heat. The shape was precise, a triangle intersected by a vertical line, encased in a circle. At first it seemed like a tattoo or an old scar, but when forensic imaging enhanced the area, the symbol matched one stored in historical archives, used centuries ago by a secret scientific society known as the Vespertine Order, a group rumored to have operated in Europe during the Enlightenment. Their mission? To protect or suppress scientific discoveries deemed too dangerous for public knowledge. Detective Bennett brought in a historian from King's College, who confirmed the symbol's origins. It had appeared in rare manuscripts about early biochemical experimentation and covert medical trials. These societies often worked in the shadows, collaborating with states, spies, and at times even assassins. The implications were staggering. Had Elias somehow become involved with a modern incarnation of this group? Was he recruited or branded as part of a circle operating behind closed doors, using science not for progress, but for control? Digging into his personal effects, investigators found multiple encrypted notes, references to the Order, the Silence Pact, and a recurring phrase, "Truth is a weapon best hidden." The deeper they went, the more twisted the trail became. Elias hadn't just been researching poison, he was tracing a legacy, one that combined science, secrecy, and power. And that burn on his arm? It wasn't an accident. It was a mark of belonging, or perhaps of betrayal. Was his death punishment for breaking a code? Or a desperate attempt to silence someone who had learned too much? Whatever the answer, it was now clear that Elias's story wasn't just entangled with modern espionage or family secrets. It was part of something far older, far more dangerous, and still very much alive. Phone records revealed that just 4 hours before his death, Elias Granger made a single outgoing call from a disposable prepaid phone, a device not registered in his name and never previously activated. The call lasted exactly 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Its destination, an unlisted number traced to a government-registered building in Westminster. The number belonged to a secure line used by a private contractor working on classified defense technology. When investigators requested access to the call's content, they were met with silence. The agency responsible for the line declined to comment, citing national security. Even with a court order, only the metadata was released. No audio, no transcript. Just a timestamp and a recipient. Dr. Eleanor Cross, a high-level consultant in biochemical threat detection. Why would a low-profile man like Elias contact someone with top-tier government clearance? And more importantly, why had that communication been buried? A former intelligence analyst, speaking off the record, confirmed that Dr. Cross had worked on a project years ago involving stealth-delivered neurotoxins, compounds eerily similar to what killed Elias. She had abruptly resigned from that project, citing ethical concerns, and disappeared from public view. Now it seemed Elias had found her, or maybe she had been guiding him all along. Further investigation uncovered a single email in Elias's encrypted drive. It was never sent. The draft read, "They know. I need to meet you. Tonight. I think they're watching." There was no name, but the timestamp on the draft matched the hour before the call. What happened during that phone conversation remains unknown, but one thing was certain. Elias was terrified, not of dying, but of being silenced. And whoever he spoke to might have been his only chance at exposing the truth, or the one who made sure he never would. The jam packet found near Elias's body led investigators to a boutique food manufacturer based just outside London, Rosedale Preserves, known for its artisanal products and luxury breakfast boxes. On the surface, it was a family-run business with a pristine reputation. But when Detective Bennett and her team began digging deeper, inconsistencies started to surface. According to internal records, a temporary contract chemist had been hired 3 months prior to Elias's death, unusual for a jam company that traditionally relied on natural ingredients. The chemist, operating under the alias Martin Hale, had no verifiable background, no digital footprint, and vanished just weeks after the production of a special batch labeled Series A12, a batch that coincided with the packet found at the crime scene. Security logs showed Hale frequently worked late at night, alone in the lab. He ordered new equipment that wasn't standard for food processing: centrifuges, vacuum sealers, and lab-grade encapsulators. Staff assumed he was testing flavor preservation techniques, but no flavor reports were ever filed. When detectives interviewed employees, several recalled a tense atmosphere during Hale's time there. One junior staff member mentioned seeing him slip something into a shipment crate the night before it was due for delivery, one destined for Elias's office building. Rosedale's management claimed ignorance, but warehouse surveillance footage, partially erased and then recovered, confirmed that Hale had tampered with a crate in the early morning hours. Even more troubling was a string of financial anomalies. Rosedale had received a sudden, unexplained investment during the same period, money funneled through an offshore account linked to a shell company with ties to foreign intelligence networks. It appeared that the jam company, knowingly or not, had become a vehicle for something far more dangerous than breakfast spreads. The evidence pointed to a chilling possibility. Elias wasn't just poisoned with jam, he was hunted through it. The company was the perfect cover, trusted, routine, and invisible. But now that cover was blown. And the question hanging in the air was terrifying. How many others had received the same jar, without ever realizing what they were spreading on their morning toast? 7 days after Elias Granger's death, police in the quiet town of Canterbury responded to a call from a hotel maid who found a guest unresponsive in his room. The scene was eerily familiar. No signs of struggle, no blood, no visible trauma. Just a man slumped beside a half-eaten breakfast tray. And on that tray, next to a buttered croissant, was a small, unopened packet of strawberry jam, identical in make, seal, and label to the one found with Elias. The victim, later identified as Henry Whitcomb, was a mid-level analyst for a private security firm contracted by the Ministry of Defense. He had checked into the hotel for a conference, alone and with no known medical conditions. His death, like Elias's, showed no immediate cause. But toxicology told the real story. Traces of the same synthetic compound were found in his system, microscopic capsules that dissolved after ingestion, mimicking a natural breakdown while silently attacking his nervous system. It was clear now. This wasn't an isolated event. It was a pattern. Detectives from both jurisdictions compared notes. Whitcomb had no direct link to Elias Granger, but he had access to sensitive government files, and according to encrypted emails found on his laptop, he had recently contacted a journalist about potential irregularities in military biotech contracts. The email was never sent. It sat in drafts, half-written, unfinished. The hotel CCTV captured no suspicious visitors. No one entered his room. The breakfast was ordered through room service. The jam had been provided by the hotel's supplier, none other than Rosedale Preserves. With 2 deaths, identical methods, and a shared supplier, the case had shifted. This was no longer a mystery. It was a manhunt. Someone out there was targeting individuals connected to classified programs, silencing them, erasing them, with the most ordinary overlooked object imaginable. And worst of all, it meant the killer was still operating, methodical, silent, and always one step ahead. Her name was Lena Morrell. Once a promising chemistry graduate at King's College London, she had vanished from public records 5 years ago, just after abruptly ending a long-term relationship with Elias Granger. Friends remembered their bond as intense, even obsessive. Elias had been deeply affected by the breakup, withdrawing from social life and eventually cutting ties with most people around him. Lena had gone on to work for a pharmaceutical company known for research into neural suppressants and microencapsulation technology, techniques eerily similar to the poison delivery method used in both murders. But after a brief 2-year tenure, she disappeared. No resignation, no forwarding address. The company listed her as terminated due to breach of contract. Her work files redacted. Now, in light of Elias's murder, her name surfaced again, this time in a hidden folder on his encrypted hard drive. Inside were old photos of the two, fragments of love letters, and a series of notes written in Elias's hand. She knew something. She warned me once, silence isn't safety. Find her before they do. Investigators traced Lena's last known location to a remote village in Wales, a small cottage under a false name, paid for in cash. Inside, they found evidence of someone living off-grid, scientific papers scattered across the room, burned correspondence, and, chillingly, a used jam packet, rinsed clean and pinned to a corkboard. She wasn't hiding from Elias. She had been hiding with knowledge that could link the murders to something much larger. Was Lena trying to protect him? Or had she helped design the very poison that killed him? A neighbor claimed to have seen a dark sedan parked outside the cottage 2 nights before police arrived. Since then, Lena was gone again. No trace, no trail, like smoke. Now she wasn't just a former lover. She was either a key witness or the most dangerous piece of the puzzle. Either way, whoever controlled Lena Morrell now likely held the answer to who was behind the deaths and who would be next. His name was Dr. Adrian Voss, a former chemical engineer once regarded as a genius in the field of biochemical delivery systems. In the 1990s, Voss had worked on top-secret government projects, specializing in microdose toxin dispersal for battlefield scenarios. But after a scandal involving unauthorized human testing surfaced, he vanished. Officially, he retired. Unofficially, he disappeared from every known registry. For over 2 decades, no one had seen or heard from him. Until now. A breakthrough came when investigators analyzing Lena Morrell's hidden documents found a formula, partially handwritten, partially typed, bearing annotations in a style distinct from Elias's. A handwriting expert matched it to Voss's archived research notes from the 90s. The formula detailed a compound nearly identical to the one that killed Elias and Whitcomb. Detective Bennett followed the trail to a long-abandoned farmhouse near the outskirts of Cornwall. The property had been purchased in cash under a false name. Inside, it looked like time had stood still, dust-covered beakers, yellowing chemical charts, a single cot in the corner, and in the basement, a hidden lab, crude but functional. In a locked cabinet, they found sealed vials, notes on dosage timing, and disturbing lists of names, some crossed out. Elias's name was among them. DNA traces on the glassware confirmed Voss had been there recently, but the man himself was gone. Further digging revealed that Voss had received encrypted payments through the same offshore account that funded Rosedale Preserves. His skills had been reactivated. Someone had brought him out of the shadows, not for research but for execution. Was he acting alone? Or was he a tool in a larger machine, hired to craft the perfect kill, with deniability built into every molecule? As the manhunt intensified, one thing became clear. Dr. Adrian Voss didn't just make poison. He tailored it to silence without evidence. His mind had designed a murder weapon so elegant, so silent, that even death itself whispered through his formulas. And now that he was back, more deaths were not a possibility. They were a schedule. The investigation had reached a deadlock. Leads had dried up, suspects had vanished, and whispers of conspiracy echoed louder than facts. But then, a chance breakthrough changed everything. In reviewing the original CCTV footage from the bakery once more, this time with enhanced motion pattern analysis, a new discovery emerged. The posture, the stride, the way the jam packet was handled. The software flagged a match not with an unknown assailant, but with someone the police had already interviewed. Someone close to the case. Simon Granger, Elias's own brother. Detectives were stunned. Simon had been calm, cooperative, even helpful during questioning. He had attended his brother's funeral with visible grief. But when confronted with the footage overlay and forensic match to fibers found on the delivery crate, the mask began to slip. Simon broke under pressure. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a cold, calculated quiet. He admitted to orchestrating Elias's death, but not out of rage or jealousy. According to him, Elias had uncovered evidence of a covert biochemical program that Simon was secretly managing under the guise of cybersecurity contracts. Elias had been documenting it, preparing to leak everything. Simon warned him to stop. He didn't. So he made a choice. He didn't create the poison. He outsourced it. He didn't place the packet himself. He arranged the timing, the distribution, the delivery route. And he did it with surgical precision, never touching the crime scene directly. But Elias wasn't the only one. Simon confessed to sanctioning the second killing as well, Henry Whitcomb, who had unknowingly discovered a flaw in the encryption protocols used to hide the operation's financial trail. Simon's final words during interrogation were chilling. Some truths are too dangerous to be free. Elias didn't understand that. He thought exposing it would save lives. I knew it would destroy more than it could ever protect. He wasn't a monster in the shadows. He was the man standing beside the grave, weeping with the rest. The face of a brother, the mind of a killer, and a heart that chose silence over justice. The trial of Simon Granger became one of the most anticipated court cases in recent British history. The evidence was overwhelming. CCTV footage, forensic links, financial records, a full confession. The prosecution presented a clear narrative. A man who weaponized science and family ties to silence those who threatened a covert agenda. Public outrage soared as more details emerged. News outlets exposed the shadow contracts, the offshore accounts, and Simon's ties to intelligence-linked biotech firms. Survivors of similar whistleblower attempts came forward, connecting dots no one had dared to before. Courtroom seats were packed. Elias's name became a symbol of silent resistance. People expected justice, expected Simon to be sentenced to life without parole. But what they got was compromise. The judge acknowledged the severity of the crimes but cited Simon's cooperation, classified contributions to national defense, and mental strain caused by conflicted loyalties. The final sentence: 18 years in a secure facility with eligibility for parole in 12. Gasps filled the courtroom. Elias's former colleagues stormed out. The public called it betrayal. Online protests erupted. Jam for Justice became a viral slogan used to criticize a system that, once again, protected those in power over those who sought the truth. Detective Bennett, watching from the gallery, said nothing. But her face told the story of every investigator who had believed in the law, only to see it bend. Simon had admitted everything, but the price of truth, once again, was negotiated behind closed doors. Justice had a face that day, and it looked disturbingly familiar. The courtroom lights dimmed. The reporters moved on. The headlines faded. London returned to its quiet rhythm. Morning traffic, evening rain, and fog swallowing the skyline. But for those who had touched the case, silence was louder than ever. Elias Granger was buried in a modest grave in North London. No plaque of honor, no mention of what he uncovered, just a name and a date. The Jam Company rebranded. The offshore accounts vanished. The documents Elias compiled, classified under national security. Even Lena Morrell, once so close to truth, remained missing, swallowed by the same shadow she tried to outrun. And then came the letter. Anonymous. No return address. Sent to Detective Bennett's desk, months after the trial. Inside, a single photo. A group of men in suits taken years ago. In the center, Simon Granger. On the edge, Dr. Adrian Voss. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, Elias. The note attached read, "He wasn't just exposing them. He was one of them, until he changed his mind." The truth, it seemed, had layers even deeper than death. Was Elias a victim, a whistleblower, or something far more complicated? London slept, but beneath its cobblestones and corridors, a hidden world stirred, quiet, unspoken, still watching. And somewhere in that silence, the real ending remained untold. If this story moved you, like, subscribe, and continue the search for truth with Crime Chronicles Confidential, because some crimes don't end when the case is closed. They just disappear, like whispers in the fog. The sweetness of jam may linger on the tongue, but in this story, there was only poison, betrayal, and silence screaming from the shadows. This wasn't just a tale of murder. It was a mirror to a world where truth is more lethal than any toxin, where justice bends, memories vanish, and the quietest details hide the darkest secrets. If this story moved you, like, subscribe, and continue the journey into real crime with Crime Chronicles Confidential, because sometimes the truth doesn't bleed from wounds, but seeps out slowly from an empty jam packet.